Got it, Courtney. All right, welcome to another DeKalb County UNITES webinar on our Getting Ready for the Recovery series. My name is Cohen Barnes. I'm a Sundog IT, a small business owner downtown DeKalb. I have Courtney Strohacker here with us from the DeKalb County Convention and Visitors Bureau. She helps me moderate all these. We also have Jock Sommese, Dr. Jock Sommese from the Small Business Development Center out of Waubonsee Community College, and there's a relationship with Kishwaukee Community College as well. So a great tandem there. So thanks, Jock, for coming on. And then, of course, we've got Mark Kerman from Siepert Co. He's a CPA, a local CPA here in the community that has been our subject matter expert when it comes down to the tax and the specifications around the PPP and EIDL loan. So thank you very much, Mark. Really quickly, DeKalb County UNITES, what is it? DeKalb County UNITES is a grassroots initiative that we formed here in the community. It came about as soon as shelter in place and the COVID-19 crisis hit. A bunch of us realized that the small business community was going to be greatly impacted by this. So members of Northern Illinois University, members of the small business community, the private sector, government sector, nonprofit sector, all came together to figure out how can we make a positive economic impact on the small business community here in DeKalb County. We did a few major initiatives, one being we got on the phone and called all the major employers in our community. We did that with the board members from the DeKalb County Economic Development Corporation, and it was wonderful. We asked these large employers, is there any way that they could redirect some of their spending right now to the local economy? And then those that had budget for other things that they were going to spend throughout the year, could they accelerate that spending in the local economy? And over 50 major employers in our community did just that. So it was just awesome to see the economic impact that made. So we're really proud of that. We also created a website, DeKalbCountyUnites.com. On that website, there's been a wealth of information about PPP, about EIDL, and other small business resources for people to be able to go and find out more information and get the answers that they need. It is really important, if you have any question whatsoever about just what's going on and you're a small business owner, feel free to fill out the contact us information on our website, and we'd be happy to get the answer, put you in contact with whoever might have that particular answer. We're absolutely happy to do that. And then the other thing that we did during this time was this series. So what's been going on for a couple months now, I think, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 o'clock, we've had subject matter experts on, we've had local businesses on, just sharing information that we all get more knowledgeable on money that was out there to help us through this time, but also ideas that were out there to make us stronger as a small business to help get us through this particular time. So it's been absolutely fantastic. Courtney, at the end, don't let me forget, I want you to maybe talk a little bit about Mask Up, just to let people know a little bit about that and where they can go for more information. That would be really cool. But without further ado, we'll just kick it off with our usual Monday PPP and EIDL, but most likely it's going to be PPP discussion today. There's been some changes. If you've been following us every Monday, you're pretty much up to speed, except just recently, I think it was last Thursday, the House passed a bill that makes some modifications to the PPP program that we just wanted to discuss and inform everyone about today. And that is going to go to the Senate, and it's expected to pass the Senate, and then it's going to go to the President's desk, and it's expected to get his signature. So all these changes are going to happen pretty fast and furious, and we're really looking forward to them, and some of them are definitely beneficial for us. So I'm really curious, and I'll just open it up to Jock or Mark if there's something you kind of want to kick it off, something that you thought was particularly awesome. Now, I know we're all, it's all speculation right now. This is a bill that's just passed the House. It is not into law or any official changes have happened. So we are speculating at this point. And all of us are just volunteers here, just trying to share information based off of the knowledge that we have to be able to educate as many small businesses as possible. So it's an informal, unofficial conversation, but Jock or Mark, if you want to just kick it off on maybe a couple things that you thought were really significant in the House bill.
Cohen, there were two different things. You kind of meshed them together.
Yeah.
On the 22nd, the more final interim modifications came down. So that was one. And then at the same time, the House passed a bill.
Jock, that's really important. I forgot last Monday was Memorial Day and we didn't have a meeting. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. So there have been two major changes. Good point, Jock. Thanks.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and basically, and I know Mark will talk about these the interim final modifications from the 22nd, but as we discussed earlier, we've been speculating from the beginning, and we've been right, I think, a lot of the time. What's going to happen next? I still stick to what I believe. They're going to extend the amount of time for the payback, and they're going to add. You're going to be able. It's not going to be that 75% threshold. I've been saying that from the beginning, so I'm going to stick to that.
Well, doesn't the House bill address some of that? If I remember, the payback period and the percentage ratio.
Yes, it does. And whether they get that passed, who knows?
Well, what did you read, Mark? What are the modifications there?
Well, they're talking about extending the 8-week window that you have to get your qualifying costs and expenditures in. They're talking about extending it from 8 weeks to 24. So that's a significant amount of time that you would have to be able to incur all of those costs that would be relevant and that would be acceptable for loan forgiveness. One of the main reasons for that, obviously, is because when that bill was initially passed, they were anticipating that this was going to be for a very short window, and ultimately all businesses would be resuming and would be back to business as usual. Problem is that each state is treating it, in its own way. We still have many businesses here in the state of Illinois that are not open and doing what it is that they would normally do. So it's affecting their ability to be able to incur those valid costs that they would to be able to get the loan forgiveness for the PPP loans. So they're talking about, again, extending it to 24 weeks for that period. Along with that,
Mark, can I just add something along with that? As we found out from the survey last week when we went through the results, we are not snapping back anytime soon. I think before it was like 8 weeks, we're going to be back, everything's going to be okay. Our survey itself actually said people are going to go slow and steady getting back. So we wanted to set the expectation level for business owners, but consumers are going to go kind of slow with this. And that was one of the great points of the survey that we did that you can find on the site. So I'm agreeing with you, Mark, believe it or not, but we actually have some substantiation for exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some businesses, though, like my son had a 4-hour wait at Great Clips today for a haircut. So everyone's out trying to get their haircut right now, which is fascinating. But no, to your point, Mark, yeah, a restaurant owner that only has a fraction of their staff back because they're just transitioned to curbside pickup. In that 8-week period, there's no way they would have been able to accumulate 75% of the loan that was calculated to help them through this period. The forgiveness would have been just a fraction of what they were overall given. So if it does get extended to the 24 months, that's a huge impact on a lot of businesses out there that are just limping along right now. This is going to keep their doors open, keep a few people employed. So when things finally do turn around, there's a viable business left over instead of a business that's been shuttered. Yeah. How about the percentages? If I remember right, well, actually, no. Let's keep on that payroll perspective. There was also a cutoff that if you laid people off, you had till June 30th, if I remember right, to hire everybody back. Otherwise, if you didn't, then you'd be penalized for a reduction in staff. Has that been extended as well as part of this House bill? Either one of you?
Yeah, the House bill includes a provision that allows you until the end of the year, actually, until December 31st, to reinstate the employees to the levels that you had them originally. So it does give you a much longer period of time in order to be able to reestablish that.
And just as a reminder, if employees who have been laid off do not want to return to work, you as the employer will not be penalized for that either. If you do the documentation for it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, if you make an offer for people to return and they refuse, then that's not going to be held against you. I did want to make a quick announcement. Frank Roberts from First National Bank of Omaha is on here as well. Frank, welcome. It's always great to have you. I know you had a bunch of scrambling you had to do on the bank's perspective before 2 o'clock today, so I appreciate you taking the time to be able to come on We're just mid-discussion on the changes that the House bill that just passed last Thursday, and we're just reviewing that at this point. So welcome, Frank.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I appreciate, I always appreciate these conversations. And I've been listening to Mark and Jock talk about this and totally agree with all of their comments. I think and this is a really 30,000-foot level. You know, the House has their plan. If I were to be a betting person, I would say the Senate's going to come back with their own plan. This is, I mean, if you go back to the beginning of this whole thing and look at the number and the magnitude of changes, and as we all joke about the interim final rule that continually gets evaluated and changed, these are really good conversations about what it's going to look like potentially. But, you know, I guess my caution about this was every conversation we have is a new one. There's nuances to all these things. And these are great things to be thinking about as we've talked from the very beginning. Get your ducks in a row and kind of develop your own process for how you're going to do this. But, you know, it could go to 60%, from 75 to 60% on the payroll. It could go to 50. It could go to the end of the year, but we just don't know. So I can't overemphasize that enough. And, you know, we did very, very many PPP loans at the company that I work at. And we continue to wait for the appropriate guidance so we can get going, because customers are going to get, you know, they're already starting to get antsy about what this thing's going to look like, and you just don't have it. Mm-hmm. So it's as frustrating to you as it is frustrating to us that are administering these things. And I really just wish they would come to an agreement about what they want to do so we can all move forward confidently. And unfortunately, we just can't today. So
what I love about our conversations that we've had as a small business owner, right, who got PPP approved money, I need to make decisions, and I need to make decisions now. And there isn't 100% out there, and business is always, I mean, nothing's ever 100%. But it's great. I've loved these discussions to talk about the spirit of, the gist of, or the trend of where decisions have been going, in order to, what has happened in the course of these discussions for me is build my confidence in I'm going to get money forgiven, and it's probably going to be what I might have originally thought, where my anxiety over this money is going down, because I know businesses that have returned money because they were just like, you know what, I'm not going to do it. And Jock, we had a guy that he didn't want to apply for it. We were going back and forth, he and I both, on multiple calls, because the fear and anxiety that's out there on some of this is causing people to not take it, which is a negative impact and completely contrary to the spirit of the stimulus money. So these conversations have been great for that. Frank, you mentioned 70.
Can I ask Frank a question?
Yeah.
Frank, if I got a PPP loan from you and I've put my stuff together because I'm getting close to the 56-day threshold, is it prudent for me to come and see my loan officer so that you guys can go through it together? Or are you saying to clients right now, let's just wait and see?
I would say probably wait and see. And I mean, you're always welcome to go see your loan officer and have a conversation and just to say, hey, am I tracking? Does this kind of make sense? And I think what the banks are going to be asked to do is just use that as the forgiveness worksheet. And it's funny, in some of the information I've read, you know, you almost need to be a mathematician to figure this stuff out. So I whether it's specific to the PPP, but I think it's really, really important in these days to keep keep in touch with your bank, your banker, just to keep going on so they know you're trying to hire people back and you can, or whatever. They can make notes and you can kind of travel down this path together. But for me personally, and this is not the position of our bank, this is just me personally, I would have conversations with the bank, but I think it's just too soon to take that application and use that as a guideline. It can be a conceptual guideline to just talk about stuff, but we think that we're getting close, and then boom, the House comes out, we're going to extend it by not 2 weeks, but, you know, a material extension. And then we're going to lower the math from 75 down to 60%. And we don't even know if the Senate's going to agree to that. So it is what it is. But rather than, yeah, that's what I'd say.
So if I can meet this tougher standard today, I'm in pretty good shape.
Pardon me?
If I can meet this tougher standard of the 75 of the 8 weeks, I'm in pretty good shape for forgiveness.
Well, I would think so. I mean, if they
Okay.
extend the time for you to be able to do it and they lower the percentage of the minimum payroll amount, unless I'm missing something, I think they're trying to make it as forgiving as they can, and recognizing that, you know, and I've heard this from a number of people in the community, and Jock, you've highlighted it, others have as well. You know, there's a number of people that are struggling to hire right now because people are making more by not working than they are by working. So they're unable to open.
Yeah, I hear that daily from small business owners talking about that particular challenge, which that extension from 8 to 24 weeks is going to be very, very helpful for them. Because if I remember right, Jock, doesn't that the $600 per week unemployment bump end at the end of July? Right around there?
Yeah, I thought it was going further than that, but I could be totally wrong, Colin.
I'm pretty sure it was mid to end of July. So that's going to come to an end at some point, which means there's going to be a whole bunch of people that are going to be looking to return to the workforce, most definitely. Frank, you mentioned the 75 to 60%. So the House bill, my understanding is passed with rather than 75% of your expenses for forgiveness, the forgiveness portion of the PPP loan, rather than 75% of it being payroll, is now down to 60%. That's accurate, right?
Yeah, based on the House bill, that's the proposal.
Yep. Which also then, of course, means you've got 40% for rent and other things, which is going to be very helpful if they extend the 8 weeks to the 24, right, Mark? Because now I didn't have 2 months rent. Now I've got, you know, however many months rent and utilities that I could apply for forgiveness on as well, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so to me, I think this is in many ways great news. Now I know, Mark, I think you dove deeply into the actual final rule or the House bill itself. Is there any gotchas? Like I thought I read something about before, or let me stand corrected since we're going back 2 weeks. The last interim final rule said businesses that are 2 million and below automatically are eligible for the PPP loan. But isn't there some wording that may change that now that makes someone like me now anxious a little bit more, right? Or am I wrong?
Yes, yes.
Do share.
Excuse me. So yeah, basically, what they're indicating is that if you had received loan proceeds of less than $2 million, they will accept that you applied in good faith. But that doesn't mean that you are eligible for the loan. So they can still revisit whether you are eligible for the loan. And if you were ineligible for the loan, according to their determination, then you're not eligible for loan forgiveness. So yeah, there's still some caveats that little hidden gems that actually popped up after that loan forgiveness application came out on May 15th. May 22nd, the interim final rule was updated, and this new information became available. That they're still indicating that they can look at any loans at any time that they choose. You have to retain your records for 6 years, so they can go back 6 years. 6 years into the future, they can go back and look and say, you know what, you were never eligible for that, and you got loan forgiveness. Now you need to pay the money back. So yeah, there is a little bit of anxiety with respect to that. I would definitely agree. There is discussion, of course, in Congress that they would like to try to remedy that, but nothing's currently out there. But you never know. I guess ultimately, the piece that I think everyone needs to understand, and the reason people keep coming back to this webinar, is the fact that we have a law that was set forth by Congress, and Congress indicated these are kind of our feelings. This is what we want to see. We have intention that we want businesses to be able to have funds to pay their employees. We want employees to continue to be employed, and so this is our intention. From there, it's up to the SBA and the Department of the Treasury to interpret that and apply regulations and rules to that based on their own interpretation of what that law was that got passed. Initially, once that got passed, Secretary Mnuchin came out and said, well, we believe because there's going to be so much demand for these loans that 75% of those proceeds should be spent for payroll purposes. That wasn't in the CARES Act. But again, these things are coming out and it continues to evolve because you have a different entity that's trying to interpret what was originally passed as part of the CARES Act. And that's also why you're now seeing a new House bill being proposed to say, well, wait, that wasn't necessarily our intention. And we want to actually make it even a little bit more liberal to make it easier for businesses to get that loan forgiveness. So I guess I'm kind of giving a little bit of an overview here, but I just want to make sure everyone understands why we're having this discussion in the first place, because there's interpretation that's happening that maybe Congress isn't necessarily in agreement with, and so we have these conflicting concepts that continue to interact and that we continue to get new information on as a result. Like I had indicated, I think a couple of weeks ago, the Inspector General did a survey and determined that, well, tens of thousands of businesses would not get any loan forgiveness if they followed the rules that Mnuchin had indicated initially. So loan forgiveness application comes out and suddenly that provision is now gone. So it's ebbs and flows, and we're here to try to keep you informed as as things come about. Just want to make sure that we're giving you the most up-to-date information that we can as we go.
Mark, can I still apply for a PPP loan?
You can. Yeah, there's still funds available.
90 billion, I think, was the last stat that I saw. So quite a bit of money still out there. And at the pace it's being taken, it's slow. So there's still literally, weeks, if not months, that it seems like it could take before we finally dwindle it down. So yeah, those businesses that are out there, which I came across another one yesterday that did not apply for it, shockingly. Now is the time. If you have not applied for PPP, you need to reach out to your financial institution and start that process. Because, am I correct, despite all the what's known, not known, final rules, all that, if you apply for the loan and get it, you're only going to pay 1% interest while you wait to get what the actual deal is going to be. And if you don't like it or are not eligible, you can just return the money overall. If you are asking for less than $2 million, right? I got you. I knew where you're going, Mark. I knew where you're going.
So I'm just asked, can you apply for the PPP twice?
No.
Yeah.
I guess I want to clarify what are you asking? Can you apply for PPP funds again after you received funds, or if you were denied?
That's the question, if you received it.
Only once.
Not for the same business.
Okay. Then that's, there's conversation out there for sure, because that's what I had heard, that we are going to be able to reapply for additional PPP funds. Now that just be word on the street kind of thing, but you're right, it's not official right now. Now as of right now, you cannot do that. So approved once, banks seem to think it could be twice in same portal. True. I'm not sure what Ronald means by that. You guys able to read that? Now, Ron, I applied 3 times. in the portal just because of the structure of the portal and how it actually played out. It wasn't like I was trying to apply 3 times. It just worked out that I had 3 applications in, and the bank sorted that out and just put the 1 application through, if that's ultimately what you're talking about. Mark, you said a lot, and I had a comment on that, but now I'm at a loss what that might have been. I guess the spirit of the thing, like Frank was saying, I think it was earlier, the spirit of the thing is, or no, what Jock was asking Frank on, if we met the requirements as they were originally to where they're starting to drift to now, chances are if you met them originally, you're going to be in a really good spot. And it does seem like more and more as this stuff keeps coming out, whether it's the SBA's frequently asked questions or the interim final rule, that it is becoming more and more business friendly at its core. It seems to be, it's going to help us. And this is where I was going with that. The whole, in the interim final rule, it said $2 million or less. If that's the money you received in PPP, that, you know what, there's no way you weren't impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. So you are eligible. We're going to assume that that's okay. The fact that there's some ambiguity in there now is causing some angst that they're going to come back and audit. But the reality of that is, I was in a conversation this morning with a bunch of small business owners. And the one thing a lot of us have to remember is if you got 50,000, 100,000, 150,000, if you got $250,000 in PPP money, you're a micro business in the eyes of what's out there. I mean, millions have been distributed. Thousands and thousands of loans have been distributed. The odds of the SBA getting around and auditing everyone seems like a Herculean task, wouldn't it be? Mark.
Are you asking me?
I mean, you know the IRS, and you know that's
yes, the SBA. Yeah, this I will say, this program is about 10 times larger than anything that the SBA has done in its history. So, to your point, I guess I would say yes, it would be a Herculean task. However, random audits can occur, and I guess to your point, the piece that, and I don't want to give too much more anxiety, but I will say the piece that they're kind of holding out in the federal register is basically saying, well, if you were able to get funds elsewhere, you may not have been considered to be eligible for this loan. That's kind of the hook that they're putting into it at this point, is basically saying, if you had access to funding elsewhere, it's possible you wouldn't be deemed eligible for this loan. And that's where the initial $2 million came in, and saying, well, you applied in good faith, you're good. 7 days later, they come out and say, well, if we audit you and we determine that you did have access to other funds, we may deem that you wouldn't be eligible for this loan. And so I don't want to create anxiety. I don't want to create angst. I'm just bringing to light what this says.
Yep, and that is where everything's interpretation, right? And that's where we do have to remember. So many of us that have been on these webinars that are going to watch this video are all on Main Street. You know, we are small, we are micro businesses just trying to get by during the COVID-19 crisis. Chances are the odds of them coming back through and saying you weren't eligible, saying you shouldn't take the money, saying your forgiveness wasn't approved, and assessing penalties and fines. I from a risk, and that's all we are as small business owners, right? It's all about risk. Mm-hmm. I think that's a very small risk at this point. This way they keep trying to make it more and more small business friendly, that just get these people the money, get it forgiven, and let them get back to trying to keep their businesses viable, is where I'm coming at, Mark. So I'm trying to counter your anxiety you just introduced into this conversation.
But I know there's no gray with Mark.
Yeah.
I know. Black and white guy.
It says right here they're going to audit you.
I will say this, and I don't remember if I said this during the webinar or if I said this prior to, but it seems to me that we have Congress kind of on this side of the pendulum, and the Treasury and SBA kind of on that side, and so every time the SBA and the Treasury try to say, well, we're going to put these provisions in, Congress is now kind of coming back saying, wait, that's not the intention. So the good news is we have Congress out there kind of looking over their shoulder to make sure that the intention is still upheld.
Another fact I just wanted to call out that in the House bill, if I remember right, just so everyone knows, that the forgiveness period is going to take a while. So originally we were all talking about the banks have up to 60 days to determine if your loan is going to be forgiven or not, based off of what you submit to them. I was always in the mindset that, okay, 60 days from when I apply for forgiveness, I get my answer. It turns out that's not the case, right? So how long do I have to wait now, Mark?
So the banks themselves have 60 days to review and make a determination on their end. They then submit it to the SBA. The SBA has an additional 90 days beyond the 60 days that the banks have. So we're looking at a 5-month window, the first 2 being the bank, and then the latter 3 being the SBA. We're looking at a 5-month window for them to review, analyze, and make a determination on whether you're going to receive loans.
And Frank, what do you think the odds are the SBA is going to get it done in 90 days? I'm smiling when I ask that, Frank.
Not well, based on how the first several months has gone, I wouldn't take that bet.
I know. So we're going to spend the money thinking it's forgiven, and we're not going to know for quite a long time. So have fun with that, small business community, I tell you. As we kind of wrap up here, because I don't know how much more there is to cover, it does seem like if you go back and watch our first webinar on PPP and EIDL, we talked a lot about the forgiveness piece, really making sure that you needed the money as you raised your hand. We talked a lot about documentation of the thing. It seems like everything we were talking about before, all those same rules do apply, right, guys? I thought I was reading somewhere about, like, if you are audited 5-6 years from now, like you said, Mark, we have to keep the data 6 years from now. We have to document and why we applied for the note, why we were in jeopardy, essentially. I'm not going to remember 6 years from now this moment. So isn't it important to kind of document the story behind why you applied, right? And keep.
You're saying you should document, Colin? Is that what you're saying?
I am.
I like it.
Yeah, I know you do. Yeah, this is right up your alley. So all of us need to remember. When you agree, Mark, all of us need to have that box labeled PPP, and we put all the stuff that we submitted to the bank for forgiveness, but then also a little bit of a narrative of reminding ourselves why we were in the situation we were when we originally applied. Would that be sound advice to let people go forward with?
Absolutely. That would be my recommendation for anybody that has PPP funds. That's kind of the last piece. Make sure you've got that narrative and make sure you have it stored somewhere that you can access it. Because, yeah, like you say, we're not going to remember. We're not going to be able to look back in two years from now and be able to recall exactly what the finances look like, exactly what the circumstances were that we were operating within, where our receivables stood. Any of those things that are factors that do have an impact on your ability to operate as a business, you should be documenting.
Mark, I don't want to open up a can of worms, but I saw something in these last notes that talked about incurred and paid later. Do you know what that's all about? Because that was very confusing to me.
Oh no, absolutely. So all right, let's look at the payroll. Let's take payroll for that example. Okay, so and I don't want to overcomplicate this because I mean I could really go down into a rabbit hole, but I'm going to try to stay a little high level here. Okay, so you have an 8-week window, right? And that 8-week window begins when you receive those loan proceeds. All right. So 8 weeks. All right. So you receive the loan proceeds, and let's say 3 days later you actually have a payroll run, and that payroll run now falls within that 8-week window. Okay. So that payroll run counts. It's paid. So that's what they're referring to with respect to paid. So then another 2 weeks now, okay, well, I went ahead and administered yet another payroll. That counts, it was paid. But when we get to the end of that 8-week period, now all of a sudden, we don't have a payroll right on that very last day of the 8-week window. Instead, the payroll that we had was, well, that was actually the prior Tuesday, and the next one we're gonna have is the coming Tuesday. So the paid and incurred, what they're referring to is actually saying, if at the end of your 8-week window, you have payroll that you accrued, but you didn't pay it yet. As long as you pay it within your normal payroll period, so again, that following Tuesday, you can consider that to be a valid cost, valid payroll cost for purposes of the PPP loan. So paid, that 3 days after you got the loan proceeds, that was paid, even though it actually was earned previously, that counts. It also counts if it's paid after, but only up to the date of, that 56th day. So you may have a payroll that covers a wider window, a longer window. It's only the payroll costs that were incurred through that 56th day that count. All right. Now, there's an alternative method that you can use for payroll purposes. Told you I'm not going to get in the weeds. We're not going into that. But to answer your question, that's really the paid and incurred. So it's actually both. It's both and. It's what was paid and what was incurred. You get to count that. That also counts for all of the non-payroll costs as well, as long as they're paid by their normal time that they would be expected to be paid.
Does pension and bonuses, does that work the same way, Mark? I know we talk about your smell test. So if I don't give bonuses until December, normally, maybe I give bonuses now in June. Is that okay?
Bonuses are allowed. There's some special provisions with respect to that we need to get into a little bit at another time, but bonuses absolutely. Hazard pay also counts for that purpose. Retirement amounts paid into retirement plans would count as well on behalf of your employees. If you're an owner employee, again, I don't want to get in the weeds, but owner employees don't count for that purpose. You can't count any retirement costs that you're contributing on your own behalf if you're an owner employee. It also is the case for health insurance. So any health insurance that you incur on your behalf or pay even on your behalf as an owner employee, those don't count, unfortunately. And that new rule came out on the 15th of May.
Wow.
Yep.
Cohen, to your point, yes, you were correct that it's the end of July when unemployment stops, the federal $600. However, in the bill that's being proposed, they want to say it's going to be good until the end of the year. Whether that passes or not, it's another story, but you were correct about the end of July. But it's state by state.
Jock, I believe actually that provision is in the HEROES Act, which is a different bill. So there's two bills that are currently sitting in the Senate. There's a HEROES Act, and then there's this additional PPP bill. The one that you're referring to that would extend it, I believe, is in the HEROES Act.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
So Mark, we had a question. I'm saying Mark, because I'm assuming you'd be the one that would answer this. A sole proprietor applied for the PPP and got very little money, then applied for unemployment, and the unemployment just came through. So now, what's the next step to pay back the PPP? Is that allowed? Obviously, they got a lot more for unemployment, and that was a better fit.
I'm actually going to defer to Frank on that. My response is yes, it's certainly allowed to pay back a loan at any time, but I would refer to Frank with respect to how that should be handled.
So did they get the PPP loan or did they not?
They did. A really small amount.
A small amount, because my understanding is if you get unemployment, you cannot get a PPP loan. Now, I may be wrong in that.
I think they applied for the PPP, applied for unemployment. Not sure how things would play out, right? Got the PPP and got unemployment. and they're going to stick with unemployment because it's more beneficial to them. So they're wondering, do I return the PPP and how do I return the PPP money?
First of all, I'd have a conversation with the bank and make sure the bank understands the question. And then if you choose to give the PPP money back, you just call up your bank and say, hey, I want to return the money. And then each bank has their own process to do it, which is, it's like paying off a loan. So it should be pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Can I take the entrepreneur crack at that one? So are the time periods the same? You know, if in the middle of March, your business shut down, you applied for PPP, you didn't get it until later on, you've earned that payroll, you've earned that wage at that point, and you could have burned through your PPP, and then you applied for the unemployment. So I'm in that, Mark, this isn't for you, but I'm in that gray area there where.
I'm wondering about the sniff test here, Jock.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Does that smell bad, Mark?
I'm assuming that's a yeah.
You know, that's a question where the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
It just is. Hey,
But I mean,
know
ultimately, if it was a small amount of PPP, she got or he got the unemployment. If whoever asked that question, because it was anonymous, if you're overall content and you don't want to risk it, yeah, talk to your lender about how do you return the PPP money. All right. With that, I figure we'll just wrap up at this time. It's quarter till, our usual stopping point. I did want to let everyone know that attended today that this is, oh yes, well, I'll get to you. I got you, Courtney. This will be our final regular Monday PPP webinar. What we're going to do is we're going to do them on demand at this point. So as new developments come up that are definitely worthy of us circling back, getting Frank, Jock, and Mark on the line here, we'll definitely continue to put these on as things progress. But let's see what happens with this House bill. Let's see what chances or changes come, and then let's see how the forgiveness piece starts going. So just stay tuned. We'll announce it on all the regular social medias and emails when the next webinar is out there. But you don't need to go to our website every day seeing if it's been posted. We'll make sure to get that information out to you. Courtney, you want to tell us a little bit about the latest program from DeKalb County UNITES as we are all transitioning to going back out to eat and back into small businesses?
Sure. So state guidelines say that we should still be wearing a mask, customers and owners. And we know that that can, be a little heavy at times, and there's some anxiety in different ends of things. So the team of DeKalb County UNITES really decided to kind of make some fun with it to remind people, but take it a little more lightheartedly. So we have these posters that are available at DeKalb County UNITES, Mask Up. It's hashtag Mask Up DeKalb County. There's superhero ones, or there's ones that have like the history in them. And I know that, even today I went and got my hair done. I'm surprised that Jock didn't even mention anything. And had to have my mask on the whole time. And so did my hairdresser. But she was, really comforted to know that we were kind of taking this just community action towards it together. So there's all kinds of information on the website under Mask Up on DeKalb County UNITES, language that you can use, different things that you can put up, or we're happy to deliver a poster to your business, or you can pick them up at any of the chambers. Genoa Chamber, Sandwich Chamber, Sycamore, and DeKalb all have them as well.
Awesome. Yeah,
Courtney, your hair is different?
Did you not notice?
I did not. Oh, now I see. Okay.
This is something that it's just important. Let's all just put on our masks, protect each other, but then also make it easier on the small businesses that you go and visit by just wearing your mask, because most likely they're going to be wearing their masks too. So thanks for that, Courtney. Without further ado, thanks Mark, thanks Frank, thanks Jock, and thanks Courtney. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure. I can't say enough about the last 8 weeks of us doing this. I know firsthand, because of the role that I have here at DeKalb County UNITES, the impact this has had on so many small businesses. The amount of times this is referenced in conversations that I have had, and the amount of people that have reached out for additional help because they've attended this. So I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to the four of you for all of your help, all of your work on these webinars. It's just been great. I mean, it's helped save some businesses, it's helped save some jobs, and just done a lot of good in DeKalb County. So thank you for your time. Everyone else, appreciate it. And you know how to get a hold of us, DeKalbCountyUnites.com. Just fill out the contact us with any questions you have, and we'll make sure to connect you to the right person. Without further ado, go forth, stay healthy, stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.